this place already is doomed. No offense. We just gotta be tell the truth. A lot of times they say, "Oh, there's no history of this ever happening in Egypt. They never wrote about it." Why would they write about this? This kind of defeat. Why would they write about this? Why would I write about this happening to me? I was like, man, hey, make sure you don't write that part. This happened. That was interesting. I like that video. It definitely shed light on something that people probably didn't know. I didn't know that.
Take out our sword in the dark and start swinging. That double-edged sword. It's quick and powerful. And it's sharp.
Welcome back. We here with another one. I know y'all see how bright it is here today. And I don't know, I'm in a bright mood. No, not to mention it's daytime. I try to shoot at night, but it is what it is. But I felt in a bright mood today. Let me brighten up the lights. Let's brighten up the lights. But now this video, I haven't watched this one. It's a video that says how Yahweh judged the Egyptian gods. Many don't know this. So hopefully it's got some new information. It's a kind of long video. I might have to skim through some of it. I'm not sure because it's 36 minutes. So we gonna go through and see what's going on with this. I don't know what it's about. It don't look like I'm gonna be against it. It look like I might be with it. Usually I'm against something if I'm putting it on here. They talking crazy. I gotta be against that. But this one might be on our side. So let's just, let's see if we can learn something today. Let's see what we can learn today. But there we go. Let's get it going.
How each Egyptian plague was connected to defeating an Egyptian god. Okay. In the ancient land of Egypt, where mighty pyramids touched the sky and the Nile River brought life, the mighty power of God was shown. It was a battle between God and many gods. God appeared to Moses in a burning bush that was not consumed by...
Y'all know how the Egyptians got all them guys, and they try to act like all the men was gods. They ruled by fear. They had some wisdom and some knowledge or something. They took that and they ruled the people with that. Don't act like, oh, these are our ancestors and they were gods and we are gods too. Nah, cut it out. No, you can't bring yourself back to life. You're not a god. And even if you could bring yourself back to life, you wouldn't even know that was you again. All right? So cut it out.
By fire. God said to Moses, I have indeed seen the misery.
I got these white hoses. I heard them crying out. I ain't gonna hold you to say, bro. I gotta tell y'all this off rip. Hey, we not with the white Africans. And I understand some nowadays. I'm talking about back then. No offense. We just gotta be tell the truth. And no offense. I love my white brothers. And sisters. Well, we gotta. Hey, y'all know it's real. But everywhere they want to post it, they're gonna show what they want to show. And I'll cut it out. It does matter. It does matter. We gotta get everything in good and better context rather than some made up. Because that's why people look at it as fake and all this, because everything made up. You want to make up this. How could you say something is real when the images don't even look? It's not even matching. The images you make are not even matching. Make it make sense.
And I'm concerned about their suffering. Exodus chapter 3, verse 7. God then tasked Moses to return to Egypt, to lead the Israelites out of slavery, and into a land flowing with milk and honey. Moses was hesitant, feeling inadequate, but God assured him of his presence and power. Moses, along with his brother Aaron, went to Pharaoh and said, Exodus chapter 5, verse 1. Afterward, Moses and Aaron came and said to Pharaoh, Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, so that they may celebrate a feast to me in the wilderness. But Pharaoh refused, and instead increased the Israelites' workload, causing them great suffering. Despite Pharaoh's stubbornness, God promised to deliver the Israelites. He said, Exodus chapter 3, verse 20, "So I will reach out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders, which I shall do in the midst of it. And after that, he will let you go."
I want to note this. Look how the Bible specifically locates Egypt. Specifically Egypt. It was a lot of different societies, but they wanted to put emphasis on Egypt. Because one day Egypt would have been looked at with all these little writings on the wall. You know, just because they write something on the wall, it's all gold now. I mean, if we wrote something on the wall today, you try to tell me 100 years from now they found something written on the wall today. Imagine they find a school desk. Somebody wrote history what they thought history was. You think they're gonna take that for face value? Or they should? These people was frightened out of their mind. They wrote whatever those people told them to write, whether it was true or not. Hey, this is the history. Write this on the wall. And they wrote it. They made their own history. Come on now, let's be for real.
This sets the stage for the 10 plagues, which were not just disasters, but signs of God's power and a challenge to the Egyptian gods and Pharaoh's authority. So before the plagues, there was a story of oppression, a call for deliverance, and a confrontation between Moses and Pharaoh, supported by a sacred promise from God to free the Israelites. This story leads directly into the dramatic events of the 10 plagues in Egypt. Connection to the Egyptian gods. Number 1. Water turned to blood. God targeted Hapi, the god of the Nile. Hapi was believed to be the god of the Nile in ancient Egyptian mythology, deeply revered as he was associated with the yearly flooding of the Nile River. According to their belief, flooding was crucial as it brought fertile soil to the banks of the Nile, making it possible for the Egyptians to grow crops. Hapi was not just a god of water, but also a symbol of fertility and prosperity. He was often depicted as a man with a large belly, symbolizing abundance, and sometimes with aquatic plants around him, representing the life-giving qualities of the Nile. This resulted in the links of the Nile River to the believed source of Egypt's fertility and life. When God turned the Nile's water to blood, it was not only a direct attack on Hapi, but also on the lifeblood of Egypt itself. Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded. He lifted up the staff and struck the water of the Nile, and all the water of the Nile turned to blood. Exodus chapter 7, verses 20 through 21.
I gotta get the scriptures in there.
The story of the first plague of Egypt is a story about how God sent a terrible disaster to Egypt to free the Israelites from slavery. In the land of Egypt, the Israelites were slaves, and Moses was chosen by God to lead them to freedom. But Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, refused to let them go. So God decided to show his power to convince Pharaoh. God told Moses, "Go to Pharaoh in the morning as he goes out to the water and say to him, 'This is what the Lord says, let my people go so that they may worship me.'" Exodus chapter 7, verses 15 through 16. But Pharaoh didn't listen. Then God gave Moses the power to perform a miracle. He told Moses to take his staff and stretch out his hand over the waters of Egypt, including the Nile River, the canals, the ponds, and all their reservoirs, and turn them to blood. This was a way to prove that the God of Israel was stronger than the Egyptian gods and goddesses, especially those connected to the Nile. Moses did as God commanded. He lifted his staff, and all the water in Egypt turned into blood. The fish in the river died, and the river smelled so bad that the Egyptians couldn't drink its water. This was the first of the 10 plagues that God sent upon Egypt to free the Israelites.
Bad or not?
Despite this scary event, Pharaoh's heart remained hard, and he still refused to let the Israelites go. So this was just the beginning of the plagues that would come upon Egypt. Number 2. Frogs. God targeted Hecate, the frog-headed goddess of fertility. Hecate was another ancient Egyptian goddess God targeted during the plague. She's often depicted with the head of a frog. She was considered the goddess of fertility and childbirth. In Egyptian mythology, frogs were symbols of life and fertility because of their ability to lay hundreds of eggs. Hecate was thus respected as a symbol of the beginning of life, and was believed to have powers that could protect and guide women during childbirth. Now connecting Hecate to the second plague of Egypt. The story of the second plague starts when Pharaoh still refuses to let the Israelite slaves go free. God then instructs Moses to warn Pharaoh of the consequences. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, 'This is what the Lord says. Let my people go, so that they may worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will plague your whole country with frogs.'" Exodus chapter 8, verse.
I want to know too. Now, when Pharaoh's heart, like, why he kept on hardening, like he kept on saying his heart stay hardened. God did that in a way so he can show them who he is. And he was showing Pharaoh at the same time, like, okay, you think yourself to be this? I'm going to influence you to keep this up so I can show all the wonders. Because this place already is doomed. It's already doomed. You know what I mean? Time will tell. But I'm going to show this right now so I can give signs and show wonders to let you know, hey, you know, this is not what you want. This is not what you want. Just chill. Just, come on, man. We got a whole world here with Earth. Like, it has everything we need. Why you got to play God? Why you got to rule over the people and slay the people? Why you got to do these type of things? Just let everybody live. But no, nobody wants that. Everybody wants this power. And once God shows his power, it's always a problem. And God doesn't even show his power the way he came. If he did, you guys would really be crying and oh, God, you saying that now, and he's showing you nothing but love. Crazy. Crazy.
This is 1 through 2. Aaron, Moses' brother, stretches his hand over the waters of Egypt, and frogs swarm the land. Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land. Exodus chapter 8, verse 6. The significance of this plague, particularly in the context of Hecate, lies in its symbolic challenge. By sending a plague of frogs, God was directly challenging the belief in Hecate's power and authority. The Egyptians, who saw frogs as symbols of fertility and blessings under Hecate's patronage, were now overwhelmed by these same creatures turning into a curse, covering their land, entering their homes, and disrupting their lives. And the plague demonstrated that the God of Israel had power over the very symbols of life and fertility that the Egyptians
See that right there? That is against one of the 10 commandments right there. Like, that's super disrespectful. Whoever made this video, Grace Digital Network, I appreciate the knowledge, but this is why you got to be careful what you're doing. That was blasphemous just now. That was crazy. A graven image, like, that was supposed to be God? Whoa. Why would you do that? Why would you go against the commandments and try to make a video for? This is why it's so much confusion, people. The message it seems like it's a good message for teaching and learning, but then you defile it. You defile the message. And this is why people look at this and look at it as a joke. You have a good message, but it's defiled, and now it's questionable. We don't keep going though, but I hope they don't do that no more. That's crazy. People, pictures of Jesus should not exist. You do understand this, right? So any Christian that say, "Oh, this is a picture of Jesus," that's not him. So all you people that don't believe or don't is looking for information, we're not supposed to do that. It's not supposed to have images of God, anything in the heavens, okay? So, oh man, just gotta note that, because we not gonna let that slide. Sorry, this is just a message. We not about to let that slide. Y'all gotta know that.
It was a powerful message to Pharaoh and the Egyptians that their gods like Heket had no power against the will of the God of Israel. Despite this clear sign, Pharaoh's heart remained hardened, and he did not let the Israelites go, leading to further plagues. The rivers shall swarm with frogs, and they shall come into your house and into your bedroom and on your bed. Exodus chapter 8, verses 2 through 4. The frogs were everywhere. In houses, bedrooms, on people, in ovens, and even in the kneading bowls used for making bread. It was a massive invasion of frogs, making life very difficult for the Egyptians. Pharaoh, troubled by this plague, called Moses and Aaron and asked them to pray to God to take the frogs away. He promised that he would let the Israelites go if the frogs were removed. The Bible says, "And Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, 'Entreat the Lord, that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may do sacrifice unto the Lord.'" Exodus chapter 8, verse 8. Moses prayed to God, and God did as Moses asked. The frogs died out in the houses, courtyards, and fields. The Egyptians had to pile up the dead frogs in heaps, and the land smelled terrible. But once the frogs were gone, Pharaoh changed his mind and didn't let the Israelites go. This led to more plagues as a consequence of his stubbornness. This story of the second plague is about how God used natural creatures like frogs in extraordinary numbers to demonstrate his power and to convince Pharaoh to free the Israelites from slavery. Number 3. Gnats or lice. Geb was an important deity in ancient Egyptian mythology, respected as the god of the earth. He was often depicted as a man lying beneath the sky goddess, Nut, representing the earth. Geb was not just the god of the physical earth, but also had a role in agriculture, fertility, and the underworld. He was seen as a father figure to plants and crops, and it was believed that earthquakes were his laughter. Now, relating Geb to the third plague of Egypt from the Bible, we see a significant connection. The third plague directly confronts Geb's domain. God instructs Moses and Aaron to confront Pharaoh again, after he refuses to let the Israelites go. This time, the plague involves the very earth that Geb is supposed to rule. God tells Moses to command Aaron to stretch out his staff and strike the dust of the ground. Aaron does as commanded, and something extraordinary happens. And the Lord said unto Moses, "Say unto Aaron, Stretch out thy rod and smite the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt." And they did so. Thereupon Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, and smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in man and in beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. Exodus chapter 8, verses 13 through 17.
Bro. That's a lot.
When Aaron strikes the ground,
Oh my
the
goodness.
dust transforms into gnats or lice. This sudden change from dust to swarming insects is a direct challenge to Geb. It shows that the God of Israel has power over the earth, which is Geb's will, turning it into a source of discomfort instead of life and growth. The Egyptian magicians, who could mimic the previous plagues, tried to produce gnats themselves but failed. Realizing the magnitude of what has happened, they say to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." Exodus chapter 8, verse 19. However, Pharaoh's heart remains hardened, and he does not heed their words or the sign of power from the God of Israel. This third plague is significant because it's not just a demonstration of God's power over the natural world, but it's also a symbolic defeat of Geb, the Egyptian god of the earth.
Right.
The inability of the Egyptian magicians to replicate this plague further emphasizes the unique and supreme power of the God of Israel.
They should have called on him.
The plague of gnats is more than just a nuisance,
And he should have been with Nets, right?
power, showing that he controls even the smallest elements of creation. The Egyptians, who worship many gods, are showing that their gods are powerless against the God of Israel. Number 4.
They worship many gods because those many men, all they did was come with fear and power and force those people to do what they wanted them to do. They forced them to submit to them. They had, different type of technology. They had sorcerers, they had army, they had mighty men, they had all this gathered up. And then they had different kind of wisdoms and different kind of wisdom, I should say, and just a different knowledge of sorcery, magics, and all this kind of stuff. So when these people, like, what could you do? It's like today, what they call sorcery and magic, you could say that's like a nuke, or the guns and what we have today, why people would fear any nation of power right now. It's like these people have all this stuff. They got this army. They got these jets. They fly around, these aircrafts. Think about that back in the day. They would have been like, whoa, let's draw these aircrafts on the wall. Let's draw these guns. Let's draw these nukes, these bombs dropping from the sky and blowing mushroom clouds. Let's think about it. And they would have built everything that they wanted them to write, kind of like what we do. Look at a history book. We only write what we want to write. You only know what they want you to know, right? Same kind of deal. I mean, like, those people wasn't saying some truth for the people to come later. It was like, oh, well, let's say these for our kids. Nah, the top people was like, let's show our kids that we rule this world. But the people, us, the people that matter, the people that has the real control, but easily, defeated, minds are easily defeated, with stuff, material world, like low spiritual, fit, like all that, dumbed down, that's us. Sorry, you like to hear it. I mean, you might be smart, one person smart, whatever, but you're the people, and the people was fooled, and we don't get our history written down there. Our history get lost. Our history in the scroll somewhere, hidden in the house, in the hut. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where our history is.
Flies. Khepri is an ancient Egyptian god often associated with creation, the movement of the sun, and rebirth. His name is linked to the Egyptian word keper, meaning to develop or to come into being. Khepri is usually depicted as a scarab beetle, or as a man with a scarab for a head, symbolizing creation and rebirth. In Egyptian mythology, scarab beetles roll dung into balls, from which they emerge, symbolizing new life and regeneration. Khepri was believed to roll the sun across the sky each day, expressing the idea of the rising sun and renewal each morning. Now, relating Khepri to the fourth plague of Egypt. The fourth plague, described in the Bible in the book of Exodus, involves a swarm of flies. This plague came after Pharaoh again refused to let the Israelite people go. The story begins with God instructing Moses to rise early in the morning, confront Pharaoh, and warn him of the coming plague. And the Lord said unto Moses, Rise up early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh. Lo, he cometh forth to the water, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else if thou wilt not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies upon thee, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thy houses, and the houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground whereon they are. Exodus chapter 8, verses 20 through 21. Unlike the previous plagues, where the Israelites in the land of Goshen also suffered, this time God makes a distinction. The land of Goshen, where the Israelites live, is spared, emphasizing that God is protecting his people. This distinction is significant and is highlighted in Exodus chapter 8, verses 22 through 23. And I will sever in that day the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, to the end thou mayest know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. And I will put a division between my people and thy people. Tomorrow shall this sign be. The plague of flies is a direct challenge to the Egyptian god Khepri. By sending a plague of flies, God is showing his power over Khepri, the god of creation and rebirth, symbolized by the scarab beetle. The swarm of flies, a pest and a nuisance, stands in stark contrast to the revered scarab, undermining the power and authority of Khepri in the eyes of the Egyptians. Despite the seriousness of the plague, Pharaoh's heart remains hardened, and he continues to refuse to let the Israelite people go. Then God did what he said he would. He sent a huge number of flies all over Egypt. These flies were everywhere, in houses, on people, and all over the land. It was terrible for the Egyptians, but interestingly, the area where the Israelites lived, Goshen, had no flies at all. This showed that God was protecting his people. Pharaoh, troubled by this plague, called Moses and Aaron. He said, Go sacrifice to your God here in the land. Exodus chapter 8, verse 25. But Moses said it wasn't right to do that in Egypt. So Pharaoh agreed to let the Israelites go into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to their God. However, he asked Moses to pray for the removal of the flies first. Moses prayed to God, and God removed the flies from Egypt. But once the flies were gone, Pharaoh changed his mind again and didn't let the Israelites go. This story from the Bible shows how God was trying to help the Israelites and prove his power to the Egyptians, while Pharaoh kept resisting.
I don't know, he wasn't trying anything. God does. Just want to throw that out there. I'm not mad at y'all video. I mean, I'm mad at a few things, but just because you have a video don't mean it's perfect. My videos aren't perfect either. You correct me. I'm not mad at it.
Number 5. Death of livestock. God targeted Hathor, goddess of love and protection, often depicted as a cow. Hathor is a significant deity in ancient Egyptian mythology, known as the goddess of love, beauty, music, and protection. She was a woman with the head of a cow, or a woman wearing a headdress of cow horns and a sun disk. This imagery symbolizes fertility, motherhood, and the nurturing aspects of nature. Hathor was respected not only as a protective goddess, but also as one representing joy and feminine love. She was also associated with the afterlife, providing guidance and protection to the souls entering the next world. Now, relating Hathor to the 5th plague of Egypt, as mentioned in the Bible, gives us a deeper understanding of the symbolism behind this event. In this stage of the story, God continues to demand through Moses that Pharaoh release the Israelites from slavery. When Pharaoh refuses, God warns of a severe consequence, a plague that will specifically target the livestock of Egypt. God causes a severe disease to affect all the livestock of the Egyptians. This includes horses, donkeys, camels, cattle, sheep, and goats. They all die from the disease. Behold, the hand of the Lord is upon thy cattle which is in the field, upon the horses, upon the asses, upon the camels, upon the oxen, and upon the sheep. There shall be a very grievous murrain, and the Lord shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt. And there shall nothing die of all that is the children's of Israel. And the Lord appointed a set time, saying, Tomorrow the Lord shall do this thing in the land. And the Lord did that thing on the morrow, and all the cattle of Egypt died. But of the cattle of the children of Israel died not one. Exodus chapter 9, verses 3 through 6. The death of the livestock was a significant blow to the Egyptian economy and daily life, as these animals were essential for labor, transportation, and agricultural processes. Symbolically, targeting the cattle was a direct challenge to Hathor, the cow goddess, showing the supremacy of the God of Israel over the Egyptian deities. Despite the adverse effect of the plague and its impact on Egypt, Pharaoh's heart remains hardened. He still refuses to let the Israelites go, setting the stage for more plagues to follow.
Pharaoh.
In this context, the 5th plague is not just a physical calamity, but also a symbolic act, demonstrating the powerlessness of Egyptian gods like Hathor in the face of the God of Israel's might. It's a key part of the larger narrative of the Exodus, where each plague serves a specific purpose in challenging Egyptian ideology and showcasing the sovereignty of the God of the Israelites. Then Pharaoh sent, and indeed, not even one of the livestock of the Israelites was dead. But the heart of Pharaoh became hard, and he did not let the people go. Exodus chapter 9, verse 7.
Now, remember what I was saying about them writing whatever they wanted to write on the walls, right? So a lot of times they say, oh, there's no history of this ever happening in Egypt. They never wrote about it. Why would they write about this? This kind of defeat? Why would they write about this? Why would I write about this happening to me? I'd be like, man, hey, make sure you don't write that part. This happened. Erase that. The Pharaoh at that time, his heart was probably hurt. I mean, he would have died, but I'm pretty sure his son was like, you're not writing that? My dad died like that. Like, y'all, hey, just pick up where we left off. You're not writing that, bro. It's not happening. And if some people, the people did, like I said, the people, history always get lost. It always sweeps up under the rug. You know? Who knows where that is? We just have the history of the main people that was sitting in the palace. You know, we just got their history. We don't have the people's history. We had the palace people history. No, we got the kings and the queens and the pharaohs and whoever, the low KG gods. We got their history. You think they was going to put this history in there? I doubt it. No, but they would argue that there was no history of that ever happening. We never seen it written on the wall, so it didn't happen. Nah, our book says it happened. We seen it happen. We got history. We got history too. No. Oh, but it was written. We got history too. This written before whatever you had. It was already written before they made it the King James version. So stop all that talk. It was written the same way before the King James version came out. Okay. The people love to say this King James thing. That was written by this and the King James was that and King James didn't write the Bible. That's another topic though. That's another topic.
This story shows how God was demonstrating his power and making it clear that he was protecting the Israelites. Despite the devastating loss of their animals, Pharaoh's stubbornness continued, leading to more plagues. Number 6. Boils. Isis in ancient Egyptian mythology is a goddess known for her roles as a healer, protector, and the one who was assumed to bring peace.
We're on the big dog now.
She was one of the most important and popular deities throughout the history of ancient Egypt. Isis was revered not only as a goddess of medicine and peace, but also as a symbol of magic, motherhood, and fertility. She was often depicted as a caring mother figure, which made her a deity people would turn to in times of trouble, especially for health-related issues. Now, relating to the 6th plague of Egypt. The 6th plague is narrated in the book of Exodus, chapter 9, verses 8 through 12. It comes after Pharaoh continually refuses to let the Israelites leave Egypt. God instructed Moses and Aaron to grab some ash from a furnace, and then have Moses throw it into the air while Pharaoh was watching. The soot becomes fine dust over the land of Egypt, and causes intense boils to break out on people and animals throughout the land. Imagine that. Took ashes of the furnace, and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses sprinkled it up toward heaven, and it became a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast. Exodus chapter 9, verse 10. This plague is significant for several reasons. First, it is a direct challenge to the Egyptian gods of health and healing, including Isis, who was revered as a goddess of medicine. The inability of Egyptian gods to protect the people from this plague further demonstrated the power of the God of Israel. Second, it's notable that even the Egyptian magicians, who had tried to replicate previous plagues, were afflicted by the boils, and could not stand before Moses because of them, as mentioned in Exodus chapter 9, verse 11. Despite this terrible plague, Pharaoh's heart remained hard, and he still refused to let the Israelites go.
These real people.
This was part of God's plan to show his power and make his name known in Egypt. The 6th plague, like the other plagues, serves to illustrate the power of God and the futility of opposing his will, as well as the specific challenge to the Egyptian gods, including Isis in her
magicians because they've done with God. No, they got magic.
Number 7.
It's real, but it's magic.
Nut is a key figure in ancient Egyptian mythology, known as the goddess of the sky.
Mm-hmm.
She's often depicted as a woman arching over the earth, representing the sky. Nut is considered the mother of the sun, moon, and stars, literally embodying the heavens. Her body was thought to create a protective barrier over the earth. Each morning, Nut gave birth to the sun, which would then travel across her body during the day before being swallowed up at sunset, and then reborn the next morning.
Oh, new giving birth every day?
This imagery reflects the Egyptians' understanding of the day and night cycle. Nut was also seen as a mother figure to several other gods in Egyptian mythology, including Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. Her role as a mother to both the celestial bodies and significant deities emphasizes her importance in the Egyptian pantheon. Now, introducing the seventh plague of Egypt in the context of Nut. The seventh plague, as described in the Bible in the book of Exodus, is a direct challenge to Nut's domain. In Exodus chapter 9, verses 18 through 26, God tells Moses to stretch out his hand towards the sky, so that hail will fall all over Egypt, on people, animals, and plants. Before this plague happened, God warned Pharaoh through Moses. Moses told Pharaoh what would happen if he didn't let the Israelites go. This passage reads, "Behold, tomorrow about this time, I will cause it to rain a very grievous hail, such as hath not been in Egypt since the foundation thereof, even until now." Exodus chapter 9, verse 18. When Moses stretches out his staff, the Lord sends thunder, hail, and fire to the earth. This severe hailstorm devastated Egypt, destroying crops, livestock, and even people who were caught outside. The hail is mixed with fire, which would have been particularly terrifying and seen as a sign of divine wrath. So there was hail and fire mingled with the hail, very heavy, such as there had not been in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. Exodus chapter 9, verse 24. This plague is significant because it directly confronts Nut, the goddess of the sky. By controlling the weather to such a catastrophic degree, God demonstrates power over Nut's realm, showing that he is more powerful than the Egyptian deities. Only the land of Goshen, where the Israelites lived, was safe from this hailstorm. The hailstorm, an unusual and severe weather phenomenon for Egypt, serves as a powerful symbol of this divine challenge. After seeing the devastation, Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron, admitting he had sinned and that the Lord was right. He asked them to pray to God to stop the hail, and he would let the Israelites go. Moses agreed. But once the storm stopped, Pharaoh changed his mind and kept the Israelites in slavery. The seventh plague, like the others, is meant to show Pharaoh and the Egyptians that the God of the Israelites is supreme. Despite the devastation of the plague, Pharaoh's heart remains hardened, leading to further plagues and suffering. This narrative underlines the theme of divine power and judgment that runs through the story of the Exodus. Number 8. Locusts. Seth, also known as Set, is a significant figure in ancient Egyptian mythology. He was a god of storms, disorder, violence, and foreigners. Seth was often depicted as a creature with a mysterious head, sometimes interpreted as an aardvark, a donkey, or a composite of several animals. His character is complex. While he was associated with chaos and was often seen as an antagonist, especially in his conflicts with the god Horus, Seth also played a protective role. He was considered the lord of the desert, and was invoked for his strength in battles, and for defending the sun god Ra from the serpent Apophis during his nightly journey. In the context of the biblical plagues in Egypt, Seth's association with storms is particularly relevant when we introduce the eighth plague. The eighth plague, as narrated in the Bible in the book of Exodus, involved a massive swarm of locusts. God told Moses to go to Pharaoh and warn him about the next plague. Moses said to Pharaoh, How long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, so that they may worship me. Exodus chapter 10, verse 3. Moses warned that if Pharaoh didn't let the Israelites go, God would send a plague of locusts that would cover the land. These locusts would eat everything that was left after the previous plague, including crops and trees. Pharaoh's officials, seeing the damage from the previous plagues, advised Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. But Pharaoh only agreed to let the men go. Moses and Aaron refused this offer because God had instructed that everyone, including children, women, and animals, should go.
You buggy, bro.
God tells Moses to go to Pharaoh and perform miracles, as God has hardened Pharaoh's heart to demonstrate his power, and so that the Israelites will tell their children and grandchildren about God's miracles in Egypt. Since Pharaoh didn't agree to God's terms, God told Moses to stretch out his hand over Egypt. When Moses did this, God sent a wind that brought locusts. These locusts covered the land and devoured everything that the previous plagues, like hail, had left. This plague was devastating because it destroyed the food supply. And Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt. And the Lord brought an east wind upon the land all that day and all that night. And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. And the locusts went up over all the land of Egypt. They covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened. And they did eat every herb under lion mud, and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. As a lot of there remained not any green thing in the trees, or in the herbs of the field, through all the land of Egypt. Exodus chapter 10, verses 13 through 15. After this devastating plague, Pharaoh calls Moses and Aaron in haste, admitting his sin against God and asking for forgiveness. He requests that they plead with God to remove the locusts. Moses prayed to God, and God changed the wind direction, driving the locusts into the Red Sea. Not a single locust remained in Egypt. But even after this, God made Pharaoh's heart stubborn again, and he did not let the Israelites go. The plague of locusts was not only a demonstration of God's power over nature, but also a direct challenge to the Egyptian god Seth, who was associated with storms. It showed that even the mighty God of storms and disorder was powerless before the God of Israel. The locusts, driven by the wind, which could be seen as an element of Seth's domain, devour everything, leaving the land barren and further weakening Egypt. Number 9. Darkness. Ra, also known as Re, was one of the most important deities in ancient Egyptian religion. He was the god of the sun, the source of light, and the creator. In Egyptian mythology, Ra was believed to travel across the sky in a solar boat during the day and journey through the underworld at night. He was often depicted as a man with the head of a falcon, crowned with a solar disk and a sacred cobra. Ra's significance in Egyptian culture cannot be overstated. He was seen as the king of the gods and the bringer of light, warmth, and growth. In the biblical narrative of the Exodus, the 9th plague that God sends upon Egypt is darkness. This plague is particularly significant as it directly challenges Ra, the sun god, who was respected as the most powerful of all Egyptian deities. Exodus chapter 10, verses 21 through 23. God instructs Moses to stretch out his hand toward the sky, bringing darkness over the land of Egypt. A darkness so thick it can be felt to the point that the Egyptians couldn't see anything. They couldn't even leave their houses because the darkness was so intense and frightening. For 3 days, The entire land of Egypt is engulfed in this profound darkness, while the Israelites have light in their dwellings. This distinction between the Egyptians and the Israelites is critical. It not only demonstrates God's power over the most revered Egyptian god Ra, but also signifies God's favor and protection of the Israelites. The darkness that disabled Egypt is a symbol of the spiritual darkness and oppression under which the Egyptians lived, while the light among the Israelites represents enlightenment and divine presence. By targeting Ra through this plague,
There we have it. That was interesting. I like that video. Aside from all the defiled things in there, I like the video. I mean, it definitely shed light on something that people probably didn't know. I didn't know that. I never even looked at that. I never looked too much into those Egyptian gods to know. I mean, I have seen them, but not looked into them that much to really know who they are by heart. I just know their names, and some of them were more significant than others. I remember the one with the woman over the earth and the earth under. I remember seeing that. If you're a flat earther, you definitely seen that before. So, that was like the firmament, what I'm saying, in the earth. So I've seen that before. And I've heard of Ra because they try to say, when we say amen, it's saying Amon Ra. And then when you say, I heard of Isis, it's, Isis is just beloved by women. Everybody wants to be Isis. And then I know that I heard one of those guys, what's his name? Whatever his name is, Genesis was supposed to be about Isis because she's just so important. So I've heard these names before, but I didn't realize what God was doing with the plagues, confronting them. Oh, y'all guys, huh? We'll show y'all power then. And it's true. If they were gods at this time, they should have been able to stop this. They should have been able to stop it. But they couldn't. Why would it be directly like that? Who would write that story to be directly like that other than the Spirit of God? You gotta just stop it. Just kneel down, humble yourself, and stop. God is love. He loves us, and He's waiting for you. He's waiting for you to come on and come get a hug. Come get a drink. Come get a bed to lay in. Get some comfort. Get some food on your stomach. Get warmth. Get some loving words. Feel it. It's a beautiful feeling, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a beautiful feeling. And I hope that you feel it one day, like I do, and like many others do. And there we have it. I'm going to leave it at that because that was a long video. Catch you on our next time. Just a message. Peace.